This is not scripted. Also, I don't want to hear how great Dynatrace is, right? Because we hear this all the time. So we really want to give you some piece of advice from these three gentlemen on how you can take what you have and make certain things better in your life, in your work life, and hopefully that also then impacts everything else around. When you make your job better, then we have a better work-life balance and all that. So let's get started actually. First, a quick round of introduction. Mike, you want to get started? Who are you? We already know you're from the Southern Hemisphere.
I'm from the Southern Hemisphere, I can see the Milky Way. I'm Mike Legg. I'm from Transurban in Melbourne, and it's been a great pleasure to come up here to Dynatrace. I look after the testing and release management for Transurban, and we've been using Dynatrace now for about a year. So.
And Transurban, for people that don't know Transurban?
Oh, sorry, yeah. So we build and operate tollways and build tunnels, etc. We have a couple of roads here in the US, but predominantly we're in America, and we've just acquired a road in Canada recently.
Cool. And I think when I was down under with you, you actually explained to me when your software doesn't work, people's lives are on stake, because if you detect problems, accidents in a tunnel, you have to close them, or anything with bridges, but there's obviously lives at stake if software doesn't run properly.
Yeah, so there's one area that we still haven't got Dynatrace into, and that is in our road management systems, or OMCS, and that is mission critical. So it is all about how we manage incidents, or actually even manage the day-to-day operations of a tunnel. So we're hoping to get Dynatrace in there shortly and get some proper management running.
Mm-hmm. Next one, Anjeneya.
Sure. My name is Anjeneya Dubey. I am Senior Director and Head of Performance Engineering and Site Reliability for McGraw Education. My responsibility is to ensure that every product and services we build is highly performing, reliable, and fault tolerant. McGraw-Hill, right? McGraw Education. The first thing that comes to your mind is books.
Yeah.
But I keep saying this: we are not a book company anymore. We are a learning science company. We improve student outcomes. We deliver education technology at scale. We have tens of millions of users, learners, and educators that come to our different platforms, and for the different education needs. And for them and for us, reliability is very important. Yeah. So we keep reliability at the center of everything we do. Again, the topics is DevOps and NoOps, and that is something that we are really focusing on how can we make our system self-heal, make it, I keep saying this in my meetings, that we don't want to keep giving human blood to machines. Mm-hmm. We want to take the labor out and make the machines work for themselves. Mm-hmm. So we are focusing on NoOps with site reliability engineering.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Nestor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nestor Zapata, and I am the manager of the data center and cloud operations team at Citrix Systems. For the past about 3 to 5 years at Citrix, I've been working on pushing that mindset, that cultural shift for automation, for more of a DevOps mentality. We were able to be successful at that in the last couple of years, and utilizing Dynatrace and the AI behind it, giving our engineers more of a capability to that quote that I've been mentioning, automate ourselves from our current job role and into the next. And we've seen that happen successfully. Folks going from level 2 to engineering jobs, from sys engineers to cloud and DevOps engineers. So pushing that mindset has been really big at Citrix.
Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. So you already had a breakout earlier today, and we have another one tomorrow on JetOps, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So quality, site reliability engineering, JetOps. I just mentioned these 3 things because these are actually 3 topics we picked up, or we picked out, and we have 21 minutes left. We'll see how far we get through. I want to get started though, and I started with this slide with most of my breakouts. If you have been here before in one of my breakout sessions in this track, the Autonomous Cloud Survey, right? We asked all the speakers and also some other companies to fill out that survey before perform. And here are some interesting numbers. I picked up 3 metrics. Dev to ops ratio on average across the perform speakers is 6:1, about 30, an average on 3 weeks it takes to push a code or config change to production, and about 45 days on average until a feature requirement gets into production, right? So that's the average. The question is, how can we improve this, and do we need to improve it, right? And I did a little animation that you don't know yet. So we all know the unicorns in the world, right? These companies, the Facebooks and the Googles of the world. I give you one metric that is slightly different for some of the unicorns, right? So for the unicorn companies, they have a ratio from 200 to 1 devs to ops. It's just one of the metrics I picked. So I think we are maybe now feeling a little small, right? We at Dynatrace, we are at around 50 to 1, just to give you some of our stats. But now I think the whole thing is about how can we improve these numbers? How do you do it in your companies, and what can you take home with you? The first topic we probably want to talk about is breaking barriers, monitoring as a common language. And I want to give you 2 examples to introduce the topic. So here's an example how our DevOps team internally, for instance, uses data that comes out of Dynatrace log analytics. They wrote a chatbot, and the chatbot is scanning for certain log messages that our backend system is issuing. So for instance, our DevOps team is interested if some of our sales engineers are cutting new managed licenses. They want to be aware of it. So they wrote a chatbot that is scanning the log analytics data and is then pushing it into a Slack channel for the DevOps team. So they know, oh, there's a new managed cluster coming up soon, right? One way to leverage the data that we already have and give it to a team that can do something meaningful with it without just looking at slides or dashboards. So this is another one. I'm sure you've seen the top one. I've been talking about this a lot. We can take monitoring data and push it, for instance, into Jenkins. So we get monitoring data from build to build and figure out what's going on. Great for feedback for developers. And on the bottom, the UFO, if you remember that a couple of years ago, we have promoted that very heavily. So we internally use the UFO to figure out what is the current quality of the build pipeline. Do we have any problems in production? We also have it hooked up with some of our marketing activities. So do our marketing capabilities or campaigns actually work? So the UFO is not just for technical metrics, but also for something market and sales related. So now the question to you is, are you using some of the monitoring data that we have available in Dynatrace? And are there any things we can do with this monitoring data to show it to people, to other people in your organization that might not think of Dynatrace as something that they want to look at a day-to-day basis to kind of break these barriers, right? And kind of make their life easier. Any thoughts?
Sure.
Yeah.
So as John was mentioning in the morning, we have a ton of data available right to us. When we think of data, when we think of monitoring, we think of answers now rather than questions, rather than the data itself. We don't want human minds to just keep analyzing this data and then take the decision. We want the decision to be taken autonomously, right? So that we know what needs to be done, and then that basically gives birth to self-healing that I was talking about. Once you know that, okay, we have this monitoring data that we know that this particular build that is flowing through this pipeline has this particular issue because one of the KPI actually degraded. Because of a particular check-in that happened, and this guy did it, if you want to go that route, then you basically take corrective actions immediately. And that is for the pre-prod. And when it comes to prod, there's a ton of metrics, ton of data that we have available through Dynatrace, or any APM that we might be using, or different monitoring solutions. How do we leverage this and build the AI that can help us take those decisions for us? And then we can use that to basically inject things into our system that can help us self-resolve some of these issues. So yeah, monitoring data is critical. At the same time, we are looking for more than data. We are looking for answers.
Yeah. Do you just, maybe for the audience, is there some piece of data that you give to somebody, that the way you implemented it, that maybe we wouldn't have thought of to give it to somebody? Like, I mean, any kind of special metrics that you're looking at that, again, I want people to walk away from this and say, I learned, hey, this metric I never thought of, to give it to this particular group of people.
Right. One thing very interesting, we do a ton of things, but one thing that stands out is we call it a sleep index. And we look at all the alerts that get generated on a weekly basis. That is all the events that has occurred. And we basically look at, that basically tells us if our engineers or SREs are sleeping enough or not.
So it's like a sleep index.
Sleep index,
okay.
Yeah. So, and again, John mentioned that the Mark is sleeping good now with Dynatrace. So are we, and we want to basically make sure that we have that index taken care of. And how are we making sure that our engineers are sleeping enough? And how do we do it? We look at these alerts, we see how many pages got triggered, and then we look at what are the trends and patterns, and how can we basically create automation around it that can self-solve some of these problems so that our engineers do not get alert for the things that they don't need to get alerted. So, yep.
Yeah. Sleep index.
Sleep
Very
index.
good. What about you? Do you have any?
Yeah, so look, with the way that we've been trying to do the mix, so you get technical data, and also get business data. So you can actually, bridge the gap between the two pieces of the organisation. And some things that, the business doesn't understand, which is all the tech underneath, and they don't want to understand. But they do want to understand how their customers feel. They do want to understand, how well are we doing in the marketplace? What is our usage and utilisation? And I do have a very small case study that recently happened where, I won't give too many details, but at a point in time, just before Christmas, when everyone started going on leave, one of our Apdex ratings crashed, from an 8 to a 1 in literally a day.
You said your mobile app ratings.
It was a mobile, yeah. And from a technology perspective, everyone started drilling in and going, oh, this is blowing up and we've got all these errors. And we know what techies like. They run away and enjoy themselves and make up all the answers without really drilling into it. But then when we all came back to work, the Apdex came back up again, which was, couldn't work out really what this was. It was something really strange. What we worked out after we actually just used the data that was given to us, we didn't have to create it, it was actually there staring us in the face, was that over Christmas, everyone starts using their mobile devices more than a desktop device. And outside of Christmas or our big breaks, Easter, etc., desktops are more common because people pay their bills online at work during work hours, good use of your time, and they like to do it on a desktop, not on your mobile device. So when we had the period where people were on leave, we also found out we had a lot more errors, although it wasn't impacting the end user. We were having a lot more errors on a specific OS version and device. And that's what actually brought it all to our attention. This is actually our user base and how they operate.
So that means what I take away from this is using RAM data, Apdex data, and not only using it for the AI to detect the problem, but maybe proactively feeding it to your, product teams, marketing teams,
product
right?
teams,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool. Nashra.
Yeah, so similar to what Mike was saying, we use some of that business impact analysis. Yes, for us, we know gigs, garbage collection, all that makes sense to us as IT folks, but the business doesn't care or they don't need to know that information. They get paid to do other things within the company. So giving them that business impact analysis, say, hey, because of this, your applications might suffer or have a degradation or are working well. That's all they want to know. And just giving them that screenshot, that snapshot in Dynatrace is very useful. Normally we wouldn't give or think about giving that access to a business user. Another thing is using the chat ops is now we're able to get the things deployed by means of Slack via Snow and Jenkins, and we don't have to wait and send an email or tell somebody, hey, this is the progress of your deployment. They can check in and ask the bot where the deployment stands. They can ask how many deployments have happened in the last couple of hours, and if they have a specific feature set, they can ask Davis, which is a member of our Slack channel now there, and say, hey, at Davis, what's going on with XYZ, or licensing, whatnot, and they get back the data in pre-production or production. That reduces the amount of time that one of our team members has to sit down, answer a phone call, Slack, or a Skype message, and get that real time. And it's more of a self-service feature for devs or even the business owners that would like to know that information.
So that's cool. So you're exposing data to people via Slack or via chat that people kind of got familiar with over the last couple of years, and basically automated something in a way where I can say, hey Mike, when was the last deployment? How many failures did we have? So I can just now chat and say, and tomorrow you have a session on JetOps, right? I think it's called, you build bots on, one is called Altron, one is called Adam, yeah.
And then the
So some and really cool stuff. Maybe from the audience, any idea on, or maybe you want to shout out any metric that you guys are internally like broadcasting to parts of the organization that are normally not in touch with data that comes from your monitoring? Anything where say, I want to share this information because I think we are doing a pretty cool job here, and the way you visualize it? Come on. No? All right, one.
I just have a comment with regard to the anecdote you mentioned about the Apdex index. How reliable is that?
So a bit to repeat, want to repeat the question first? And then
So you're asking how reliable the Apdex index rating is?
Based on your personal experience.
We think it's fairly accurate. It truly did represent what our users were doing, and it was very accurate to the day. And in that instance, and I think going forward, as the AI has been, we've been learning. We have quite a complex system that we have Dynatrace on. We are starting to see better results now. Early days, I wouldn't have looked at it. It was still a lot of learning going on. Today, because it's been for almost a year now, it's actually quite accurate. And we can, if we took Dynatrace away, we could actually probably come to the same result. Take us a lot longer to do, but the same result. So we are a lot more comfortable with it today, yes.
Cool. All right, let's switch maybe to the next topic. Building reliability, the rise of the site reliability engineering teams. Before I go into the topic, who of you works in an organization that actually has a site reliability engineering team? Cool, yeah, a couple of those. Perfect, so maybe, what is site reliability engineering? I put a couple of logos in there, or screenshots, and I know you are Director of Site Reliability Engineering. Maybe you want to quickly get us through what is site reliability engineering, why is it so hot, who coined it, and give a little overview?
Sure. So we are coming from DevOps, right? Most of us. Site reliability is the next big thing in DevOps. I should say that. Site reliability is how a software engineer builds operation function. Thinks about operation function. Site reliability engineering team is basically embedded into the agile teams, sitting with the product engineers and making sure that the product that we are delivering is taken care from reliability perspective right from the day one. So we are building reliability into the application, into the infrastructure. So the site reliability engineers are basically focused on reliability, keeping reliability at the center of everything they do, with the agility and the speed at which they want to deliver features. At the same time, they are automating all the infrastructure stuff. So they're taking care of the infrastructure automation. They are taking off overall build, maintain, and managing the production systems. They're also looking at the incident management, problem management. They're reacting to alerts and stuff, and making sure that the product engineers understand the pain that SREs go through when things go wrong, so that that gets injected into the product delivery life cycle, or the product engineers are actually understanding what it takes to build a code which is not very performant. So site reliability engineering is basically focused on reliability, making sure that we have the speed and agility at which that company wants to move forward with delivering features to customers. That's a short answer. There's a ton of things the site reliability engineer does, right from the infrastructure automation to building self-healing systems, because they don't want phone calls, and they are software engineers. They can code pretty much everything, and they want to code. They want to solve any operation or production issues through software. Like I said, they don't want to put labor or human blood into it. They build systems that is very resilient to faults, and you want the production system to run unattended as much as possible. And for any system to run unattended, it has to be resilient to fault. So they build the fault tolerance and reliability into the platforms from all aspects, not just the code, but the infrastructure, the overall infrastructure as code, the monitoring as code. They basically automate pretty much everything that entails the successful product engineering teams.
So Mike, is Transurban doing site reliability engineering?
No, we're definitely not. But we've spent the time, building ourselves around DevOps, building the teams, the product teams, etc. And I think I've got a question.
Sure.
It's a big investment, to build platform teams and the DevOps teams and get into where we are today. To do this, we almost have to undo it all and rebuild, which is you're changing the structure of delivery team. What sort of type of impacts would you expect that we would face if we have to? If Transurban did say we're going to go down this path, what do you think we'd have to do?
No, absolutely. So there's an old saying, right? The culture beats the strategy. So the first thing that you want to make sure is culture. That is taken care. You have to change the culture, and I think I'm proud to say that we did pretty well there. We changed a lot of processes that helps the culture to change. We basically keep performance and reliability at quality of everything we do. we basically looked at a lot of things early on. We changed our agile processes when performance engineering gets involved or SREs get involved, so that they basically looking at that with that lens of reliability, everything that is flowing in. And then we wanted everything to be taken care of by code, right? So you are basically coding everything. Now, building such team is a challenge. It's not an easy thing, but good thing is we all have those skills. I mean, every company pretty much has those skills. All you need is make sure that you have a strategy towards it, and then the focus towards building such team. The site reliability engineers are basically software engineers, a mix of sysops, or system admins. You have monitoring engineers, you have the performance engineers, database engineers. They all work together with the software engineers. So we have these functions in our organization. So all we have to do is we have to make sure that we understand what it takes. And there's a very good book, Site Reliability Engineering by Google, which basically, and that's there on our slide too, that helps learn some of this very quickly and easily, how Google did it. But we are not Googles. We have our own problems to solve. We have our own challenges to take care of. But there's a lot of learning that we can get out of this. And maybe not SREs, but we can probably have a crawl, walk, run process in it. And the first thing is the wake up. Nobody talks about it, right? So we had DevOps and we had issues there. It was siloed. Nobody was talking to each other. There was the production issues were operations issues and not the product engineers issues.
So that means you had DevOps on the one side and Ops on the other side,
right?
Which doesn't really, it's strange because it's called DevOps. So you had DevOps,
right? Yeah. Right. So we bridged all that through SREs, and again, it wasn't an easy thing to do, but again, it's not an impossible thing to do. Given that we have the skills, we have the team, all we need is the direction.
Yeah. Nestor, do you have anything to add to it?
Yeah, specifically SRE, as the format as we see it here, we don't necessarily have that, but we do have what we call pods or CDT, or they're called continuous delivery teams, and they're specialized folks in operation, monitoring, database that kind of help out the projects that are ongoing from the business side, and those projects have a CDT assigned, and once they're done with that, they move on to the next one, but they're able to come back and resource are used for that. So kind of streamlines the project, puts everybody in the same perspective. If this project is going to be about data, they'll get somebody who's big on BI and big data, things of that nature, scripting, Python, PowerShell. They get the best people they can for that specific project, and those CDTs could be up to 3 people, 5 people, and they blend in throughout the organization, and they're used in multiple areas, whether it's production, business development, or actual ops use as well.
Cool. So also we have a couple of pictures here in case you wonder. Obviously the book is clear. What about the canary? What does that mean? Anybody have an idea? I mean, site reliability engineering. There's some companies out there. Why is there a canary picture on there? What does that have to do with? Canary in the coal mine, exactly. The idea with canary releases is you have a new build or a new feature and you want to test it out, right? You basically put it into an environment and figure out does it survive, yes or no. And typically it's like you are delivering or giving access to this particular canary build to a small test group. And if they like it, everybody will get exposed to it. And if they don't, well, it's not safe. And the same with the canaries, right? And the coal mines, they took the canary down to figure out, is the air good enough? Because if the canary dies, the bird dies, and obviously it's not good enough to send everybody in, right? Also the blue-green deployments on the bottom, and then some Chaos Monkey engineering. Are you guys doing Chaos Monkey?
Yeah, not exactly Chaos Monkey, but we do a lot of failover. We have some of automation on how we test reliability of our system. So we do a lot of failover tests. We do a lot of resiliency tests. Some of the Chaos Monkey suite from Netflix, they have some great tools to use, and we use some of those tools as well. So yeah.
Anything to add from the audience for those folks that are doing site reliability engineering already? Some lesson learned that you want to hand off to others? Or a question again to the audience, to the panelists here?
How do you avoid burnout?
Can you repeat that?
How do you avoid the burnout?
How do you avoid to burn out? Yeah.
That's a very good question. So how do you avoid burnout? The ton of production issues are all over the place, right? But that's where we have a culture shift. We want the product engineers to understand the pain of SREs. So we basically have, so there's something called, in the book, it's a book, there's a very good metric that I'm a big fan of, and I call it as point of no return, sorry. Basically look at your SLAs. So you look at your SLAs in 99.9% that you want to meet. That means that you have error budget of 0.01%. So you know how much uptime you can, or downtime you can take in a year. Based on that, you basically do some calculation, come up with, okay, this team or this agile team or this particular product engineering team needs more SRE time versus the rest because their system is more reliable than this team's. So you basically convert some of the SREs or some of the product engineers to SREs. And SREs for us is not a team, it's a role, and anybody can play that role. The software engineers play that role, so they are going to react to these alerts, to these issues, so that they understand the pain, and hence the culture gets shifted towards building the reliability into our products when they're developing it. So they look at the code, they look at everything, they make sure that we are doing the things right. In case if we are still not able to meet the goal, we basically onboard more SREs to that team that takes care of some of that work so that the team does not get burned out. But again, we want to make sure that the culture is there to build software that are resilient to issues.
It's part of that culture. The moment you have a production issue, before the team is properly formed, it's still evolving. If you had a production issue, the developers, even though they weren't SREs, wouldn't get involved because they had skin in the game. It wasn't a handoff. I've done my code, I'm moving on to the next one.
Right.
They see their friends because what you're doing is you're letting go of your partners and friends and teammates.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
You ship bad code, you own it, you build it, you fix it.
exactly.
You own it, right?
That's
Absolutely.
what the CDT team do. They developed the licensing app, for example. We had a licensing app that was released for Citrix, and that same team is working on other projects. But if anything happens to that, they have to come back because they are the experts, they're the ones who worked on it and know it best. So that CD team kind of carries the life of that project or that application itself.
Yeah. I think also that to your point, I think it also comes from Google. At Google, and maybe not all projects, but the idea is if you have a new feature, a new product, the development team is responsible for that product in production as long as they can prove it has a certain set of reliability, and then they hand it over to the ops team, right?
Right.
So that's kind of...
The breaks, the pay goes back.
Exactly, yeah. Cool. I know the clock says 0, but it was set to 25, so we still have 3 minutes to go. I know you guys all want to go over to the marketplace, but just quickly, becoming automated, and the tagline is Davis, fix that problem for me, right? I think here are actually a couple of screenshots, Nestor, that we kind of took from your presentation of tomorrow, and we already alluded into what you guys are doing with chatbots, right? And I think using bots to automate certain tasks is just the way we kind of automate ourselves out of our current job, but it's important so we can focus on something new.
Yeah.
So can you again kind of repeat
so
what you did?
I mentioned earlier today, automate your stuff out of your current job role into the next one. So a lot of skill set went into this. Python skill set had to be learned by the team. We didn't go and hire somebody for that. We learned it internally. Our bosses knew what the point of this was. A lot of self-service. The bot is called Ultron. I don't know why we decided on an evildoer to do our good work, but that was the bot that we decided to go with. Everybody finds it very funny. So Adam is saying here that it found an issue in one of our key services. It's an Azure key service on a specific node for the MyCitrix application. And Ultron detected that and says, let me try and fix that for you. Mm-hmm. It has self-healing scripts. So initially we had to go into Slack, kick it off, and Ultron will go say, okay, I'll go and contact Jenkins, contact Azure, and fix it for you. Now we build out the AI that when Adam contacts and says this is happening, we know the data is true, and Ultron will go in and fix that automatically, and it will come back and say, hey, I was able to fix it, or no, I was not able to fix it, and I'll give you the reason why it thinks it couldn't get it through. So now instead of somebody in ops or in service desk level 2 having to look into this and take time in doing that, they don't have to worry about that. This could happen 20 times during the night. Nobody's going to be woken up in the middle of the night. That sleep index is going to be great for us. And there's a lot of things that we trust the data and data and trace to do that self-healing part. And we can see there the deployment request, and the engineers come here. That comes directly from Snow or ServiceNow, and they know what the pre-production path is, what the build number is. And you can see Ultron says, are you sure this build is the correct one because I can't find it.
That's
So
pretty
it probably happened they didn't check it in properly, or even worse, another developer checked in code before they did, and instead of being at version, what is it, 0.54, somebody else put in 0.54. If they go in and do that, they're going to overwrite the code their colleague did. So Old Chum will have that AI built in to prevent things like that from happening. And again, limiting that human error and eliminating very smart people doing very menial work or mundane work. And we can focus on those DevOps activities, those SRE activities, and strengthening our skills for that next job role. And we saw that happen in our team, guys and girls going from service desk into engineering roles. Now we're the DevOps team, and then folks are now in other teams like security operation and Sec DevOps architects, things of that. They're growing within the company because they had the time to dedicate to learn these new tool sets.
Pretty cool. And now I think a lot of emails are going to be sent to that email that we have out there.
Please don't do that.
Yeah.
One of our developers.
I'm just saying, maybe the audience in here is
Yeah.
already sending him an email. I have another slide here actually, but I know it's from you, how the way you're using Davis, but actually it's something for you, Mike, because I want to get your last kind of point on this. You can see here that you can actually talk with Davis, and you can actually get your graphs, right? You can actually ask Davis now, show me the app decks of my app.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you don't need to have these business people asking you, show me that graph in Dynatrace so I learned something, but it's a recent extension of Davis where you can actually ask for certain metrics on a certain app at a certain time frame, and in the chat, you actually get back the charts. That's pretty sweet too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a self-service model. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Got a question over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a question. And you may have said it in your, how long was the migration from start to being this automation?
Well, past couple of years, we've been trying to evolve from a DevOps mindset, agile mindset into that. There's actual bot business that we've been doing probably 6 months of very intense work. We have one of our guys in the UK, in Ireland. He did a great job at focusing the efforts on that. We took some of the workload from him so he could focus on that. And then we started learning it as well and tweaking the bot as we needed to. And then we share these bots with other teammates in the operational landscape. But about 6 to 8 months of dedicated work from the team.
Yeah, I'm glad he did not name it Thanos, though.
Huh? Say it again?
I'm glad that he did not name it
No.
Thanos.
Yeah.
Probably.
All right. I know we are kind of at the end. You guys are going to stick around or at the marketplace.
We'll be around.
Right.
Be around.
Yeah.
Well, much for that.
And we
Anything
have
else?
much more
Yeah.
detailed session for
Exactly.
chat-ups
So tomorrow at 1:30, we have a session on chat-ups with you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. If people want to know more about how the Milky Way looks like from the Southern Hemisphere, right, they will come to you.
Not quite as good as Brian, but anyway, I'll give it a go.
And I can just remind everybody again, take the survey, please, the ACM survey. I think it was very valuable to figure out where you are and where you want to go. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much. Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.